So when I was getting dressed today, I very quickly put on a lab coat and some cat ears, not even trying to have something coherent, just wanting to have some kind of costume. And then I used some eyeliner to draw some whiskers on my face. So yeah, that's my costume, cat in a lab coat. Does it make sense? No. Who cares? Still wearing the same skirt and striped knee-high socks from yesterday, but that's just my work clothes. But then, when I got to my office in the physics department, one of my colleagues was immediately like, "Oh, Schrodinger's cat girl!" It both was and was not a coherent costume until someone observed you and collapsed the waveform. Feeling like an insane leftist compared to people IRL and like a right-wing crackpot compared to everyone on here. I go to a family gathering and I hear my uncles discussing how having a cat makes you a bundle of sticks. I open this app and read crap like, "Superheroes are an inherently fascist idea made to reinforce toxic masculine values." My grandma, "Kids dying from COVID doesn't matter because they were probably just weak and sickly to begin with." People on Tumblr, "Voting upholds a fascist system, so we should all just sit around and daydream about being communist revolutionaries instead." Can't anyone just be normal? My 3-year-old said she wanted to be an astronaut, and I said she had to study hard, go to college, learn a lot of science, and take a physical fitness test. And she shrugged and said, "That's just 4 things." So she's basically a nonchalant motivational speaker. A child's mind is always so positive. I showed this tweet to some of my classmates, and now whenever one of us is stressed about everything, someone will say, "That's only X things." This 3-year-old is changing the lives of med students. What if there was a show where every character was gay, and you had the token straight guy character, who acted really stereotypical, was into cars, beers, and women, and everyone was like, "Oh, straight Larry, you're so funny and straight." It's been done. Fun fact, Larry's the only 100% confirmed canonically straight character in Ace Attorney. If you present a certain attractive man's profile to him, he replies something along the lines of, "Sorry, but no matter how hard I try, I'm just not into men." Love the implication that Phoenix keeps showing him men he finds attractive to see how he reacts in everyday life. I love the implication that Larry tried very hard to find men attractive, but just couldn't. Thanks for this addition. Oh my freaking god, that is hilarious. "I'm really sorry, Nick. I swear I want to change my ways. But the thing is, I just don't have any interest in men." Not providing the scene in question is a crime. There are guys in my dorm who decide to play cards in the elevator. See, what intrigues me about college isn't the intellectual pursuit or the bonding or whatever, it's the fact that people have the freedom to do random crap like this. Okay, everybody, I have a story about random crap in college. When I was in college, there was a particular class I took where no matter what time you walked into class, if you made it into the room before the professor, you wouldn't be counted late. I mean, it's a pretty cool policy given how some professors are really obnoxious about attendance. Well, one time, a fellow student of mine was running late to class. She reached the edge of the building, she saw her professor making it to the front steps. Super long rectangular building here. He looks up from walking and he sees her. He then points to his watch, gives her a well-meaning "look who's late" face, and walks on inside. What he didn't know though was that this particular student was like freakishly good at bouldering and related climbing skills. So she was just like, "Friggin', and scaled the building." She tapped on the window of the 4th floor classroom. The floors had like 20-foot ceilings, so she was quite a ways up there, nearly making one student pee himself. They opened the window, she rolled through onto the floor and slid into her seat about 5 seconds before the professor opened the door to the classroom. He did a double take, started to say, "How the hell did," when a security guard ran in, red-faced and panting, pointed at her and bellowed, "Stop doing that!" Oh my god. As a phrase, she X on my X till I X only is funny if on either side of a spectrum. Either the phrase ends so specific to a coital action, it's a smart joke. For example, "She stroking me off till I beef" uses the word "beef stroking off," but also makes a stroking off joke, making it clever wordplay. Or it makes so little sense that it ends up funny from the absurdity of deciphering what type of coital action could even be taking place. Example, when my roommate the other night asked to hand them a San Pellegrino and then said, "She san on my pelly till I grino," which begs the question of what sanning is, what a pelly represents in terms of human genitalia, and what grinoing could possibly be. Say something funny about House MD. I started writing House MD fanfic in high school, and because my autistic butt got into it so hard, I was reading anatomy textbooks on break during my summer job. When I was 16, I wrote a bunch of meticulously researched, if dramatic, and very written by a 16-year-old fanfic. Like, went and joined forums for each condition to describe them as accurately as possible. And like, accidentally helped like a bunch of people figure out what was wrong with them by essentially doing fully new medical description research because I was obsessed with the toxic old man Yowie. I've died on smaller hills, so I can't judge, but I do think it's funny whenever posts about the proper definition of a poor little meow meow circulate, considering none of them mention that the origin was a K-pop fan's absolutely bonkers tweet about not being able to protect a full-grown man who was getting backlash for including audio from the Jonestown cult leader Jim Jones in one of his songs. I was clearly not at the Devil's Sacrament, what the frig? But, like I said, we did feed the sharks lionfish that we caught on our dive, and it was really interesting, because this wasn't the first time divers had done that in this area. So, the sharks would swim up to those who had spears, tap their head against the spears, then swim over to the reef. And then they'd swim back and tap their head against the spear again. And if you followed them, they would almost always lead you to a lionfish. And then we'd spear it and feed it to the shark. This is so friggin' funny. I love sharks. So you're at the party, right? And there's this girl in the corner with another girl on a leash with the puppy ears on. Standard stuff. And you start talking to her, and she introduces the girl on the leash and says, "This is my little puppy Emily. Say hi, Emily." And the leash girl does a little bark at you, and you say, "Oh, that's nice." And you're looking for a way to avoid the awkward silence during a 4-second period that feels like a half hour. So you ask, "Does she know any tricks?" So the girl says, "Come on, girl, show 'em." And the puppy girl gets up, pulls out a skateboard, and starts doing the sickest kickflips you ever saw. About 7.5 years ago, I was #canceled for making essentially the same post as OP. A few years back, my car insurance company offered me a discount if I stuck a dongle in my car that would tell them how I drive, specifically reporting hard accelerations and stops, with a base discount of 10% even if I drive like a madman, up to 40%-ish if I drive like a grandma. And of course, naturally, my first thought was, I bet I could make something running off an Arduino that filters hard brakes and accelerations out of the incoming data stream to get that 40% discount. And I got as far as looking up OBD2 protocols before realizing that that would just be insurance fraud. Yes, I'm an engineer raised by 2 engineers. How could you tell? You could also try driving safer. That's a better way to do that. I live in Boston. Oh my god, it's like a day, everyone. Drop what you're doing. We honor a little dog who was sent up into space 65 years ago today. She was found as a 3-year-old stray mongrel wandering the streets of Moscow. Her ability to endure hardy conditions got her chosen as the candidate for a journey she was never meant to survive. She passed away 7 hours after liftoff. I hope she died dreaming of chasing rabbits up in the stars. I love you, Laika, forever and ever. Never forget, she was loved. She was not killed as an act of cruelty or simply neglected. People cared about her, and the many space dogs who survived proves it. She was loved. Rest in peace. Every single person with a dog to give them a little kissy on the forehead right now, for Laika. Great ritual for honoring Laika's memory, from another thread. I hate viruses so friggin' much. Literally getting attacked by a friggin' shape, a concept, consumes no energy, responds to no stimuli, its only existence is to frig with you. Like, frig off. Previous's tags are too good not to save. Right? It's not even a beast or a creature. A bacterium is at least a guy, a horrible little scallywag of a guy, but a guy nonetheless. A virus is just a mean, tiny, complicated Phillips head screwdriver. Frig off out of here. Go back to Concept Town. A software tester walks into a bar, runs into a bar, crawls into a bar, dances into a bar, flies into a bar, jumps into a bar, and orders a beer, 2 beers, beers, 9999999 beers, a lizard in a beer glass, -1 beer, Cordiuiop beers. Testing complete. A real customer walks into the bar and turns on a screen reader. The bar goes up in flames. The customer orders in a language that is not English. The bartender doesn't answer. A blind customer asks what's on the menu. The bartender shows 9 images. The bartender asks for the customer's information. You tell them your name and the bartender responds with, "That's not a real name." 31 years since my dad sent me to the shop for a tin of red and white striped paint, and the shopkeeper sent me back to ask him if he wanted horizontal or vertical, and I sussed out on the way home what was going on, and then kicked the front door so hard it broke. This is what I mean when I say that recreationally lying to kids is an important family tradition. An old boss of mine was in the Navy, and as always, they hazed the new guy. Told him to go get a bucket of checkered paint from the quartermaster. I think it was. Any mistakes in nomenclature are mine, not his. The QM, tired of the nonsense, actually made one. He put a grid of cardboard in a bucket and carefully filled it with alternating paints, then removed the grid, leaving a bucket of black and white checkered paint. I feel like if you come back with a bucket of checked paint, you should immediately be promoted to general. That takes moxie. The thing you have to keep in mind about Moby Richard is that it's an explicitly anti-racist text written by a white guy in the 1850s, so you end up with stuff like Ishmael spending an entire paragraph complimenting a Polynesian guy on his skull shape. Hashtag periodtypical anti-racism. Orinoco, the Royal Slave by Aphra Behn, 1688, is anti-racist because it is explicitly against race-based chattel slavery. It is not, however, anti-slavery. Just makes the argument that many black people have royal blood in them and are therefore intelligent and driven leaders of men, unsuited for this kind of labor, and make bad slaves who will lead the slaves into rebellion because it is their destiny as monarchic heirs to be leaders of men. There's a line in it that's like, honestly, just as many white people ought to be enslaved as black people. Race is a terrible metric for this decision. She takes pains to talk about how hot the protagonist is because he has a European nose. It is utterly bizarre to be read by 21st century anti-racist sensibilities. Bugs Bunny isn't your conventional trickster god. He doesn't steal or lie. Rather, he inflicts on us a societal hubris. He traps us in the rules, conventions, and expectations we've made, forcing us to go through the niceties of the barbershop or DMV at the times most inconvenient to us. If we didn't have these rules, if it was 12,000 years ago and all we had was a snare and a knife, Bugs would be nothing more than a mortal rabbit. But now we have built so much and he has become a god. Been a while since I've seen this good post. Trickster god of bureaucracy. My first language has a perfect saying for this, but it doesn't make sense in English, sad face. Say it anyway. You don't owe them perfect clarity. Be profoundly cryptic. Speak in riddles. Make them ponder what the flip you meant by that. The Anglos, like porridge, must sometimes be stirred, so they don't burn stuck on the bottom of the pot. If I were you, I'd spit on the floor and swim away. If my grandmother had 2 wheels, she'd be a bicycle. You could scare a popcorn ready. Uglier than hitting your mom. If you get up from the casket, the funeral ends. Jumping over the mental hospital wall with the gates wide open. Clapping for a lunatic's dance. And if English speakers like it enough, or enough use it, it will be adopted and probably mangled because the English language is like that. Today I learned that Van Halen had that rider in their contract about a bowl of M&Ms with all the brown ones removed in order to know, at a glance, if the promoter read the entire contract. And the reason they do that is because they once had a stage collapse because a promoter hadn't read the proper way to set up all the specific technical stuff. So, if the band goes in the dressing room or catering and sees brown M&Ms, they know they have to double check the stage setup for safety. Now that's rock and roll. At work, I could be cooking and cleaning and coding and reading and working out and weaving tapestries and playing video games and climbing a mountain and having coitus and filming a movie right now, yet they keep me trapped in this prison. Idle hands are the devil's plaything, and I am being forcibly molded into his perfect conduit. I must break free, seize the day, and waste not the beauty inherent to finite mortal life. At home, my one true passion upon this pointless earth is bog mummy imitation. Probably because the 40-hour workweek drains the life out of people and leaves them barely able to be productive or have a life outside of their jobs, thanks to capitalism being a horrific system that forces working class people to push themselves to the breaking point just to make enough money to barely survive. The first Polish language dictionary, published 1746, include definitions such as horse. Everyone knows what a horse is. Archaeologists 20,000 years after horses go extinct cries, I don't. That comment is one of the most accurate things in studying history. I can feel the pain already. Sometimes when I'm high, I like to imagine arguments in the far future about what kind of milk or eggs were in our recipes. How if the main opposing factions would be divided over whether the milk was from dogs or cats, because what other mammals were in the vast majority of households back then? One of the details that stuck with me from Bill Bryson's book about domestic history is how in early salt and pepper shaker sets, from around the time Europeans first started putting salt and pepper on the table, there was a third container and nobody was entirely sure what it was for. There's some highly plausible guesses, sugar is one of them, I forget the others, but the extant textual references to these items just say salt, pepper, etc. Back to the original post. In Poland we still say everyone can plainly see what a horse looks like and it means there's nothing to discuss here, everything is clear and obvious. Benedict Chmielewski, the venerable priest who wrote the Compendium of Knowledge, also provided this very brief definition of a dragon. It is difficult to defeat a dragon, but one must try. In a world where being a robot is illegal, and people are racist towards robots, the robots are trying to have a heavy-handed civil rights movement. There's Robot Super Crack that gives robots superpowers. All robot racism comes from Senator Racism, who is running for president. Our protagonists, Model Minority Robot and Nice Cop, must work together to ensure that Senator Racism is not elected. And guess what? They are lesbians. Model Minority Robot is childhood best friends with Terrorist Robot, who is sympathetic but goes too far and is a villain now. Nice Cop looks up to Older Cop, who is eventually revealed to be very racist or corrupt. There is a scene where Nice Cop says racism is bad and walks away from something dramatically. Nothing fundamentally changes. An NSA agent in a suit looking through my laptop camera. She's on her phone. Our data shows that she's got Tumblr open on her laptop, but she has Tumblr open on her phone. Double check her browser? Some nerd hired straight out of college. Types rapidly, she's definitely got Tumblr open on her laptop. The NSA agent, softly, so why is she looking at it on her phone? My husband and myself have served in the military. When we call home from overseas, our lines are monitored and on a short delay so no sensitive information is revealed. The line will just go dead if you say something you're not supposed to. Now, these calls are monitored by a department in the military called Signal Corps. When we talk on my husband's last deployment, we had a running joke that we said hi to Signal Guy Fred. So this continued for his entire 12-month deployment. We made sure we said hi or bye to Signal Guy Fred every phone call. On his final phone call before returning home, we made sure to thank Signal Guy Fred for his time and wish him farewell. So, before I disconnect the call, I wish Fred the best and thank him for his service. My phone was on speaker mode, I was cooking dinner, and my finger was hovering over the end call button when I hear the softest little, "My name's Jason." American television after 5 years of pushing for queer representation. I hope you wanted unnecessary drama, angst with a maybe resolution, and 3 unfulfilling seasons of questionably written flirtation, and that all comes before anything is half confirmed with a singular lukewarm kissing scene between 2 conventionally attractive white bisexual women. Thai television point 3 seconds after they figured out queer content is marketable. Did you want something kinky, soft, or stupid? Did you want cat ears? We've got cat ears. We've got safe, sane, consensual, or off-the-charts bad etiquette BDSM. We've got college students out the butt. As long as they're an engineer or architect, choose your flavor. Do you want an age gap or classmates? Something for adults, teens? Everyone who was childhood besties? How about that? This is a short order restaurant, and I will flip you some gays like they're hotcakes. Just tell me what you want. It actually bums me out that astrology has persisted through the years as the standard BS divinatory practice that people really buy into, when it so easily could have been ornithomancy instead. We could have had hipster girls trying to predict the minutiae of your life using an intricate chart that details how many herons or crows you've seen in the past year. Instead of asking what's your sign on dating apps, people would be like, how many birds did you see on your way to work today? I cannot stop thinking about what could have been. We could have a world where drunk girls in bars with decorative binoculars get you to sign petitions to rewild the local canals because the heron populations are catastrophically low, and this is what's causing the housing crisis. Sorry to break it to you, but you literally have to face your fears and slaughter them. Otherwise, you will live a small life that you do not want. You literally have to view your biggest fears and attack them head on. You have to fall into the abyss to find your way out. The easy path does not exist. There is no get out of jail free card. You have to allow yourself to die a spiritual death over and over again in order to reinvent yourself into the person you are actually supposed to be. And you have to be painfully honest with yourself and the people around you. It's horrible, but it's truly the only way. Sorry, but if your bed isn't against at least one wall, you're not valid. I used to think this post was stupid because most people like both sides of the bed free, but then I realized some psychopaths put their bed like this, so not even the headboard is against a wall, and this post is about these animals. A single person's bed is generally against 2 walls, a couple's bed is generally against 1 wall, and people with 0 walls have no fear of the dark or unseen with direct access to their head, and therefore cannot be human. Okay, the bed just out in the middle of the room is bad, but have you considered only the footboard end against a wall? No, I hadn't. Why would you put that image into my head? I literally cannot take anything Lance Armstrong says about trans people ever seriously, for obvious reasons, but also because there's a museum somewhat near my house in the Scottish borders, which is a museum to Clan Armstrong, who were famous border reivers, i.e. people who would go across the Scottish-English border and dismember people for their cattle and whatnot. Plus, at this museum, they have portraits of all of these famous Armstrongs, most of whom spent their entire lives turning half the population of Cumbria into mincemeat, up in a hall, from which only one person's portrait has been removed for poor conduct that shamed the family. Can you guess whose? One of my favorite TikTok niches that was created by people so bored they're barely alive is that there's a whole diet soda community where they believe everything you do greatly affects the way diet soda tastes, and there are very specific methods of serving it to make sure you get the right flavor, as if it's an expensive steak or something. But the best part is, they believe how long you leave it in the fridge is the most important part in all of it, which they call marinating. I checked this out because I found it almost impossible to believe, but it's true, at least for this one lady. You see, this is indeed absurd and silly, but the problem is, my ex-boyfriend used to be able, somehow, to not only immediately tell the difference between all the kinds of Diet Coke / Coke Zero or whatever, but also the manufacturing date. He would go, "Ugh, this Coke sucks, it was made more than 6 months ago," and he would be right. We got several meals comped over the years we were together because he immediately noticed that he was served an expired Coke. Insane useless ability. Which of my recent single-use verification codes is the most friggable? One of my favorite Tumblr phenomenons is when there's a poll where all the answers are just patently absurd, and yet somehow there's a clear winner. It'll be like, which of the world's oceans is the most friggable? And I'll be like, well, I'm not an ocean frigger, so I don't really have an opinion on this, but if I had to choose, then I guess the Pacific. And then I vote, and like 60% of people voted for the Pacific. And it's like, okay, what's going on there? A bot wrote this obituary, and I'm losing my mind. Brenda Tent retired from living at the age of old, surrounded by family and natural causes. A librarian from birth, Brenda was an avid collector of dust. She had a sweetheart and married her high school. She loved having hobbies and helping her sons to be disadvantaged youths. She had no horses, but thought she did. The church gave her a choir because she sang like a bird and looked like a bird, and Brenda was a bird. She owed us so many poems. The funeral will be held in 1977 at Heaven. In lieu of flowers, send Brenda more life. See you in 1977. It is literally impossible to pick a favorite line from this because the entire thing is gold. No, it's not that I don't appreciate the flirting. I just wish you wouldn't do it while I'm in the middle of vivisecting you. Yes, I know that it's really hot when I'm covered in your blood, elbow deep in your chest cavity. That's why I keep vivisecting you. But I keep getting flustered and dropping your liver, and it's really slippery. So I keep dropping it over and over again, leading to very comedic slapstick comedy where I slip on your blood and fall over really funny. I'm currently testing the limits of my antidepressants by rewatching Breaking Bad. Unrelated, can someone please reply with an image of a dog or something? And also, please tell me that Jesse Pinkman is going to be okay. No rush, but I'd like this as soon as possible. Please. You are going to be okay. Okay, so I definitely misread your post, but by the time I realized, the image was made. This image has done irreparable damage to my mind. Stop letting miserable people on the internet convince you that you must have a concrete, well-constructed opinion on everything that has ever existed. You are not compelled to form any opinion about this matter before you, nor to disturb your peace of mind at all. Things in themselves have no power to extort a verdict from you. Marcus Aurelius has already released you from the obligation to have a take. Everybody say thank you, Marcus Aurelius. Thank you, Marcus Aurelius. Me walking into the grocery store to buy everything bagels. Ho ho ho, I like this post. If I made it, I would have written ginger ale instead of everything bagels. But that's fine that you wanted to make a post about bagels instead of ginger ale this time around. I get it. me going back to the grocery store because I forgot ginger ale. Ho ho ho! What a great post, friend! I love the part about ginger ale. I have this post as a screenshot on my phone. At Hellsite Hall of Fame. I think perhaps the most annoying / exhausting phenomenon in existence is when something kind of genuinely sucks, but it has like a female lead or whatever, so half the people that are saying it sucks are nightmare people that unironically call things woke garbage, and the other half are people that just like have a basic sense of story structure and knowledge of character arcs as a concept that quite reasonably think this thing sucks, but it gets assumed that 100% of the people who think it sucks are in that first half, and then there's a backlash to the backlash, and all along, it's still not a good friggin' story. I call this the Twilight phenomena, because it got a lot of hate because of a mockery of teenage girls when it had well-deserved hate for the like racism and misogyny and the throwaway detail that a grown man is somehow romantic soulmates with a quite literal baby. You know, if Romeo had just cried on Julia's corpse for a couple hours instead of drinking poison right then, they would have been fine. The moral of the story is, always take time to cry for a few hours before making important decisions. So I'm more or less being facetious here, but this is actually a thing. Hamlet's genre savvy. Hamlet knows how tragedies work, and he's not going to rush in and get stabby without making absolutely certain he's got all the facts. Except once he thinks he has all the facts, once he's certain that it really is the ghost of his father and Claudius really did kill him, he rushes in and stabs the wrong guy, which starts a domino line of deaths and gets Laertes embroiled in his own revenge tragedy, and ultimately results in the deaths of nearly every character other than Horatio. That's the irony and the tragedy of the story. Hamlet knows his tropes and actively tries to avoid them, and the tropes get him anyway. It's inevitable. The tropes are hungry. I want a sticker that says the tropes are hungry so I can put it on my laptop. I met a scholar once who said that tragedies aren't about a silly flaw or anything, it's about having a hero who's just in the wrong goddamn story. If Hamlet saw places with Othello, he wouldn't be duped by any of Iago's crap. He'd sit down and have a good think and actually examine the facts before taking action. Meanwhile, in Denmark, Othello would have killed Claudius before Act 2 could even start. But instead, nope, they're both in situations where their great strengths are totally useless, and now we've got all these bodies to bury. I remember I had no clue how to use AO3 because I was trying to read a mature fic and it gave me a warning and I didn't know how to click out of it and just said nope and went to Wattpad. Oh, you guys are like stupid. For reference, this is the warning that was too hard to navigate, apparently. This work could have adult content. If you continue, you have agreed that you are willing to see such content. Yes, continue. No, go back. I'll never be able to reconcile Shel Silverstein's art and stories with his appearance. He looked like he would gladly murder you with a shard of broken glass and then throw your body directly into a shark. You have odd notions about masculine faces. Real gentle-looking sneer. Really gentle-looking when not, say, in the grainiest over-inked newspaper photo you could find. Buddy, it's literally the photo he put on the back of The Giving Tree. There was this book Dad used to read to me every night called The Giving Tree. It was a really good book, but the back of it had a picture of the author, this guy named Shel Silverstein. But Shel Silverstein looks more like a burglar or a pirate than a guy who should be writing books for kids. Dad must have known that picture kind of freaked me out, because one night after I got out of bed, Dad said, "If you get out of bed again tonight, you'll probably run into Shel Silverstein in the hallway." So y'all are just going to ignore that one music album cover? The way that internet facilitates a sort of mimetic decay of phrases related to coital attraction to slowly, inexorably point towards the same conventionally attractive people in their 20s instead of the original meanings is so disgusting to me. People want to claim the allure of the unconventional while still treating it with disgust. Fat Boy Summer about average men. Dilf, but only if he's under 40. Bear about a man built like a superhero. Butch, but not if she's too butch. Monster Figure about an anime girl with horns. It's exhausting. Literally, once again my oomph-in-law has got it in one. Y'all are calling 20-year-olds with 8% body fat MILFs SMH. If you saw the moms I want to frig, you'd hurl. I like how writing realistic worlds and characters is so important for so many writers, to the point where they agonize over it. Meanwhile, Lemony Snicket was just like, death to reality. I'm gonna write this whole series, and with God as my witness, absolutely friggin' nobody is gonna act like a person. Daniel Handler, after downing whatever the hell he was on. The baby has piranha teeth and can take a trained swordswoman in a fight. All of us, friggin' genius! Readers, what time and place is this set in? Daniel Handler, yes. The premise of minimum wage, when it was introduced, was that a single wage earner should be able to own a home and support a family. That was what it was based on. A full-time job, any job, should be able to accomplish this. The fact people scoff at this idea if presented nowadays is though the people that ring up your groceries or hand you your burgers don't deserve the luxury of a home and a family is disgusting. Also, if a livable wage breaks the system, then the system deserves to be broken. Who has the image where it says Albert Einstein lived in a house made of cheese and failed the driving test 8,000 times? Alfred Einstein was one of the smartest mans of the 19th century, but did you know he just crapped all over the place, constantly. Didn't know how to walk, at all. Smoked the devil's lettuce. Graduated DeVry University at age 3. Played Paul on the Wonder Years. Was a furry. Lived in a house made of cheese. Believed in God. Failed the driving test 8,000 times. Barbecued his Richard for an hour. Knew Dracula. Fell down a mineshaft and died. We're Gen Z voters, and we all proudly voted for Kamala Harris. Real men support Harris. You're not men, you're boys. If there was no social media, you would be my harem. If you would have told me in 2011 that the guy who just killed Bin Laden was going to one day threaten to coitally enslave a group of young men because they didn't vote for Donald Trump for president, I would have assumed you were on cocoa. But here we are. Tumblr is, if anything, the Appalachia of social media. Easy to get lost, sparsely populated, out of the loop with fast-moving modern trends, attached to tradition, close-knit communities, believe in talk crap, get hit. Everyone is doing their own thing in their own obscure little holler, prone to pulling the most inventive turns of phrase you've ever heard out of nowhere. Somebody's always starting a racket. We sometimes repel outsiders with much aggression. Lots of talk about hell and damnation to be found. Everybody tends to forget about us for some reason. What is pirating media but the moonshining of the internet? A lot of people want to frig the Mothman. Bad idea. Continuous presidential election. The polls never close. You can always go change your vote to any of the currently eligible candidates. The president is in power as long as they have the most votes, but that could change at any time, not just every 4 years. If enough people get out and vote, you could end up going through 5 presidents in 1 month. No term limits of any kind, maximums or minimums. You're in power for exactly as long as you're #1 in the never-ending popularity poll. 3-year-old, confidently, "But mommy, people do not eat cows." Me, bud, we do. Hamburgers are made of cow. 3-year-old, uncertain laughter. "Mommy, that's funny for pretend, but I mean for real." Me, "Yes, for real." 3-year-old, with scorn. "No." Me, "What do you think burgers are made of?" 3-year-old, "People?" May I add, Sweeney Toddler. This passes peer review harder than anything has ever passed peer review in the history of peer review. Hello, my dear students. 2 reminders for you all. 1 is that your lab report on the Cellular Energetics lab is due tomorrow night. Get to work on it if you haven't started. 2 is that we do meet for lab tomorrow. This is a very important meeting because we will be reviewing for the lab final exam. However, past experience leads me to expect poor attendance for exam review sessions, so I've decided to give you all an incentive to come to class. Free snacks, you might wonder, maybe bonus points, but no. The incentive is, if you guys show up tomorrow, I will bring my hawk so you can meet him. You might even get to pet him. Don't miss out. Come to class tomorrow for the review. Attempting to get my students to freaking come to class. Good news! Had an average of 17 out of 24 students in both classes show up to the review. That's 71% of the class. This is compared to an average 11 out of 24 in previous semesters. Bird worked. Also, for everyone in the notes who want to see the bird, I've got these pics pinned on my blog too, but here is the boy. I think society would be much better if it was considered more normal and acceptable to go on quests sometimes, at least once in your life. It doesn't even have to be personal to you. Like, you could call your boss like, "Hey, my friend is going on a quest to find out once and for all what's the truth about her grandmother's childhood family. Ain't got nothing to do with me, but this is probably gonna be a big one, and she's gonna need a friend with her. And they just be like, all right, sure, see you in a year, and let us know if it's gonna be longer, so we can start training a more permanent hire until you get back. Oh, by the way, Yzma is a golden example of a likable, non-sympathetic villain. The audience knows she is totally evil and pretty much unredeemable, but the writers and character designers did such an excellent job of making her so likable and visually appealing. A friggin' plus! Frog's redemption arc has yet to be rivaled. Nothing can ever friggin' compare. OP, did you just friggin' call Yzma visually appealing? In terms of character design, Yzma is visually appealing. The artist did a great job picking out colors and perfecting her silhouette. Using those design principles, they created an expressive villain that is fun to watch on screen. OP is absolutely right in that observation. Good character design is about good use of shapes, curves, and angles. Yzma is a fantastic example of that. And we can't sideline Eartha Kitt for literally breathing life into her character to the point of perfection. Yzma really was an exemplary villain. Visually appealing does not equal want to frig them. But I still know that some of y'all want to frig that old woman. I know what website I'm on. Wait, do those tin can phones really work? I thought this was all a myth. I just looked up a video. This is wild. I'm making one tomorrow. In my high school art 4 class, we were no doubt supposed to be getting ready for a very important art show, two of my friends made one of these phones, but instead of talking into it, they would write messages and clip it to the string and slide it across the string to the other. And when the art teacher asked why, they said, "We're texting," and she could not believe it. This was the funniest thing she'd heard all year. So she got on her office phone and called the principal and said, "Two girls are texting my classroom. I need to come take their phones and issue them detentions." And we all waited like buttholes for him to show up, and when he asked where they were, she gestured at my friends texting on their tin can phone. My principal was already a pretty tired dude, but that was the most exhausted I think he ever looked. I don't hate shipping. I just think a lot of you people maybe like shipping too much. It's okay. You can engage in a fandom without shipping. It's okay. There are other things you can do. Not everything needs to be about romance and characters being cute and kissing. And not every unhealthy relationship has to be romantic either. Can we get some love for unhealthy platonic and familial dynamics? Dear Tumblr, fanfiction can be about things other than, and then they fall in love. Dear Space Battles, fanfiction can be about things other than, and then they fight. There's someone who has their iPhone named Hot Single Horses in your area, and they airdrop people pictures of horses randomly. Nobody knows who it is. Once, during an assembly, the laptop that the projector was from had airdrop turned on, and in the middle of a presentation about bullying, it popped up in front of the entire school. Hot Single Horses in your area wants to share an image. A picture of a horse with text and bubble letters over it saying, available. I don't block people just because of a difference of opinion. Cool, I do. This is a space where you can go, bestie, you're not on my enrichment team, and then throw them out the window of your life without hesitation. Some people act like blocking is equal to stabbing someone for just existing. But actually, blocking is just putting on your headphones because they're talking too loud and you're not interested in what they have to say. Unfollowing and/or blocking is self-care. Not engaging with things, topics, or people that upset you is a vital skill. Even in good faith, you do not owe anyone your time and energy. If you are in the other side, being unfollowed or even blocked, maybe it isn't them acting on bad faith, but them being able to take a step back, and you too can profit from that. Tumblr, by and large, is one of the last places online where you have a good influence on what enrichment gets into your enclosure, but you have to actually do something about it. Not following, unfollowing, and in more extreme cases, blocking someone who upsets you are the most important tools you have. I think it's really amazing how total strangers who have nothing in common but their shared love of a work of fiction will come together across distances and dedicate their time and energy working collaboratively to build an extensive, richly detailed fanon that completely friggin' sucks. Wait, what? I hope you meant to say doesn't suck. You guys are so committed to being bad at interpreting things, you'll just straight up decide this post means the opposite of what I wrote and reblog it anyway. You can see a post and scroll past it, you know. You don't have to go reblog and say this but opposite. Yesterday, I had to get my blood drawn and was freaking the frig out because I am terrified of needles. and there was this amazing nurse there that came in and held my hand and comforted me during the procedure and was trying to say how brave I was, but the way she worded it was really funny. She just kept on repeating, "If you can change your name to Todd, you can do anything." And like, I know she meant that in a hashtag trans ally way, but I couldn't help but think, damn, is my name really that bad that you think I'm brave for choosing it? I think the most unintentionally pretentious part of me is I genuinely forget that most people do not have a near encyclopedic knowledge of mythology and folklore. I literally just assume most people know at least the name of every Greek god. My mom and I were watching the Banshees of Inisherin, and at the start she asked, "Do you know what a banshee is?" And I was so stunned because it would never occur to me to ask that question, because I would never assume the average person doesn't know what a banshee is. The average person knows what a banshee is, right? You know what a banshee is, right? You know the names of the Greek gods, right? You know that Norse myth where Loki frigged the horse, right? 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 Responsible exotic pet influencer voice. Look at how cute and cuddly my endangered African cat is. Don't you wish you could do this too? Remember though, only I can do this. I'm not promoting this animal as a pet. Hey, check out my super awesome King Cobra free handling. Doesn't it make me look hard-boiled? Again though, only I can do this. I'm not trying to promote these animals as pets for just anyone. All I do is post constant photos and videos, making it look really cool and fun and hard-boiled to own these animals. Don't ask where I got them, by the way. Commissioning artists really makes you feel like a Renaissance noble. Like, you'll get an email that just says, "Hey, sorry, some things came up, but I'm working on your piece, and here's a work in progress." And suddenly, you're wearing sumptuous velvets and eating grapes on a reclining couch, like, "Oh, take as long as you need, my Orpheus. My riches and time are a paltry price to pay to bring your beauty to the world. I am a patron of the arts." Never forget the universal rule of the order of things. People will not read it. Signs at stores, email, menu, instruction, post online, caption with answer to question, group handouts, street sign? No. The written word is the enemy. Americans are making this post about their crap education system and the literacy crisis, whatever that is. And I say this with love in my heart. It really is not that deep. Pathology this, pathologizing that. How about the universal human inclination to take the path of least resistance? Americans, you are not special. People are stupid globally. Why do witches always want to fatten kids up before they eat them? Fat is the grossest part of meat.
Why, hello there, little children. Please follow me to my magical
fitness room. No panties allowed beyond this point. Leave your whining at the door because it's leg day and we're about to get ripped.
Because they're always cooking said kids in cauldrons and ovens, aka long cooking times at lowish heat. If you do that to fatty meat, the fat melts completely and the meat gets teared apart with a fork soft. If you do it to lean meat, you get tiny little sad meat bits that bring no joy to anyone. Well, you did ask. Also, there's wisdom in fattening them up on sweets and other carbs. A meatless, carb-rich diet makes for more tender and flavorful meat. You are arguing over the semantics of eating children! Well, yeah, you gotta get this crap right, or it's a waste of 40 to 80 pounds of meat. Plus, if you feed them a high-fat, low-nutrition diet, they're easier to subdue and less likely to run away, which would be a concern for an elderly crone. Thank you, old witch with candy house side of Tumblr. Getting work done on my house, and the contractor was like, "I saw your sign. Are you, in the community or an ally?" And I was doing the major side eye. It was hesitantly "In the community?" And the guy whips out his phone and goes, "Cool, let me show you a picture of my daughter and her 4 kids and her wife. And did you know the baby is theirs biologically, which is very cool." And then I got to listen to him tell me all about being an ally and how much he loves the queer community. And also, he thinks it's despicable all the friends they lost when his daughter came out. And they haven't won the best yard since they put a pride flag out. And it's how it's about making sure people have safe spaces and know they aren't alone. To my complete astonishment, I really did get the full essay from him. It's very funny to me that the stereotypical gelatinous cube is bright friggin' green when the monster itself is almost perfectly transparent. Its gimmick is that it's a monster that imitates an empty 10 by 10 hallway. How many people have fallen victim to gelatinous cubes because they know that the ooze is bright green and so don't bother to check the suspiciously clean corridor in front of them? The cube is green because, oh my god, Do you know how hard it is to draw a perfectly transparent cube, especially in isolation like in the Monster Manual? Even if you put debris in, it reads as floating skull featuring helium sword. Awful, absolutely wretched. I'm picturing it appearing in in-universe bestiaries with a little caption like specimen died for visibility. Dungeon naturalists sneaking up on a cube with a bucket of green dye so they can see it well enough to study it. Classifying your slimes and oozes by gram staining them. How friggin' arrogant can you be to think any eugenics program could ever weed out fascist genetics, even if the Dark Triad was a reliable precursor to fascist ideology, and even if Dark Triad traits could be reliably linked to genotype, they aren't and they can't be. How friggin' far to Jupiter are you if you think you can remove it from a population of 7 billion, let alone in some anarchist manner? How do you programmatically sterilize anyone in an anarchist manner? Do you ever see some discourse float by and think, maybe I'm not hanging out in the worst parts of Tumblr, actually? You were born of a sacrilegious union. Your green dragon mom never figured the knight she seduced while masquerading as a noblewoman was a silver dragon in disguise. You'd no idea either, born a human orphan. When your dragon blood awoke, so did the dangers which all your heritage entails. I was born half dragon. Oh crap, what's the other half? Different dragon. I'm 2 halves dragon. That's just being a whole dragon. No. I'm 2 halves dragon.
That's just being a whole dragon.
You'd friggin' think so, wouldn't you?
You pick up the menu at the restaurant. All it contains is a QR code and instructions. Simply scan our QR code to download our app and point your phone at this page through our app for an AR view of our menu. You get up to leave. The door won't open. There's a sign next to it. Display your receipt in our app to the scanner to exit. You go to the bar to talk to a human. There's no one there. A sign says, need help? Just click the help button in our app. Relenting, you scan the QR code. Not compatible with your device. I've seen people be like in Modern Fantasy, like, oh, the protagonist can just look up spells on their phone. How do you solve that? I'm gonna be honest. Most people who go on recipe websites and book every recipe they see don't even use them, Lamau. Why would witches be different? Given how terrible most recipe websites are, I can only imagine how bad spell websites would be. Having to navigate someone's entire life story of how they became a witch in order to get to the part where they actually talked about the god's damn banishing ritual. The number of easy 3-step spell to fly that at best do nothing and have a good chance of doing something very bad to you is non-zero. 3 words, BuzzFeed spell hacks, 5-minute witchcrafts. Cannot emphasize enough that there are IRL articles about spells and witchcraft that read like that. It would not be that much of a stretch to go full recipe blogger. Me in the dungeon, typing into Google, how to cast a light spell. Remembering that time I waited through, this is my family's super secret can't miss light spell. When my grandmother was a child in Lithuania, she had a pet pony named Brambles, only for the spell to call for 6 candles and a bottle of holy lighter fluid. Delete, 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 delete. Me in the dungeon, typing into Google, Reddit, how to cast a light spell. Do not do this. If a website has a paywall like New York Times, do not use the Control-A shortcut, then the Control-C shortcut as fast as you can, because then you may accidentally copy the entire article before the paywall comes up. And definitely don't do Control-V into the next Google Doc or whatever you open, because then you'll accidentally paste the entire article into a Google Doc or something. I repeat, do not do this, because it is piracy, which is absolutely totally wrong. Also, do not append 12foot.io before a URL. Typing a URL like this will redirect to a site that would break the display of the page by removing the paywall. Honestly, it's kind of prohibited to mash Control-P before some paywall windows can load in to get a PDF of the article. Really shouldn't be done, to be honest. Very dangerous. The word garbage sounds like it should mean clothing. It does, or rather, it does come from garb. Garbage originally meant the small fabric scraps left over from tailoring, all the tiny bits that were too small to cut a pattern piece from. Back when you generally bought fabric by the yard from a draper and then took it to a tailor to be made up, keeping the garbage was the tailor's prerequisite. Unscrupulous tailors were accused of deliberately cutting to maximize the garbage, which still had various uses in tailoring, as padding or for backing buttons, and could also be sold for making paper. It's hilarious to me when people complain about AO3 and its policies and what they allow on the site, but it's especially funny when people complain like, why can't the freaks make their own site and just go there? Sweetie, AO3 is the site for that. Y'all invaded our space. Wattpad and FFN still exist. Go there. They're as crappy and G-rated as you want. You can't have the luxuries that AO3 offers if you're gonna be a little wuss about its policies. Imagine walking into a strip club and complaining about the alcohol and naked ladies when there's a goddamn Denny's next door you could have gone to. Christ! I haven't been able to forget this guy's look from School of Rock ever since I first saw that movie. I was only 9, but I knew he was serving. Dimitri Martin once said, "I saw a guy at a party wearing a leather jacket, and I thought, that is cool. But then I saw another guy wearing a leather vest, and I thought, that is not cool. Then I figured it out. Cool is all about leather sleeves." And you know what? Spot on. I don't think Fight Club was co-opted by the right because they didn't get the satire. It was co-opted because it friggin' kicks butt. They would have co-opted any movie that is that good and has hot sweaty men in it. Right-wingers aren't aliens. They know a good movie when they see it. The lesson isn't, don't make satire because the wrong people might think it's for them. The lesson would be, don't make art that kicks butt. And I'd rather there be art that kicks butt. Leftists do this too. Like, we see a movie that is so good it makes us see stars, and then reverse engineer that transcendent beauty into something as banal and explainable as political resonance. We do it with pro-capitalist anti-corporation art. We do it with anti-capitalist pro-monarchy art. This is just a thing that happens in the brains of people who experience great art. Why is that the art's problem? One time, I went through the Taco Bell drive-thru, and when I tried to order a Baja Blast, I said Mountain Booba, and then I just left. Could not recover. A friend of mine once went to order a beefy bean and cheese burrito, but ordered a Beto instead, and I think of it every time I go to Taco Bell. At Taco Bell, woman ahead of me is trying to order a Chocobo Supreme and will not work with the cashier to figure out what she means. From one chronically anxious person to another, the world is not going to go up in flames. What happens will be more slow, more bureaucratic, more boring. There is no catastrophe to end all catastrophes. No rapture, no sudden end. You can't give in to the call of the void, because there is no void. So you just have to do the work to make tomorrow a better place anyway, because that's how it gets better. In 1892, a Canadian dentist called Edgar Parker had a traveling dental show named Painless Parker's Dental Circus. He extracted teeth while a band played to drown out the patient's screams. Painless Parker, born Edgar R.R. Parker, 22 March 1872 to 8 November 1952, was a Canadian-born street dentist, described as a menace to the dignity of the profession by the American Dental Association. However, yeah, that tracks. Man, you could just do stuff back then, huh? My emotions are valid. Valid does not mean healthy or good or to be privileged above common sense and kindness. A distinction for anyone who is young and hasn't figured this out yet. You are allowed to have whatever emotions you want. No one can control your emotions. Emotions are healthy responses to things. You are not allowed to have behaviors that are harmful just because you have certain emotions. Your behaviors are what you can control, and they are far easier to control than your emotions. You can be jealous about someone or their talents until you turn green, but it is harmful to yourself and to that person if you try to sabotage them because of it. You can be so angry you can literally feel your temperature rise, but this does not give you permission to rage at others. Your emotions are valid. They are always valid. You are a person of value. However, your behaviors are not always justified just because of those emotions. You may not be able to control your emotions, but you can certainly control your behaviors. Shout out to the guy who created a parody account of CinemaSins, where instead of pointing out every single flaw in a film, he just pointed out things he liked about the movie. You're so right, CinemaWins. It's so much more fun to like things. CinemaWins once said, every movie, with very little exception, is someone's favorite. I like to find out why. And that sentence alone is worth more than every single thing the CinemaSins guys have ever created. I don't think some people understand that true joy in any relationship, romantic or whatever the frig I have going on, is when you say or share a thing that makes your partner sigh and then stare off in the middle distance as they regret ever having met you. And I can hear some of you saying that's some heterosexual nonsense, but no, this is universal. And it's not genuine hate or regret at like being with you. They still love you and crap. It's just you said or sent them something so cursed that they just are filled with regret. And then you cackle like the horrible little gremlin you are and scuttle off to find more things so you can respond to their eventual retaliation. And that is what love is. I love you is all nice and good, but nothing compares to I love you, but shut the frig up. Once working retail at the jewelry counter, I was putting a bunch of new inventory watches in the case, so I had like 7 expensive watches in my arms, and this elderly couple walks by, and I see the old man's eyes light up as he darts over to me, and I can see the regret on his wife's face because she already knows what's about to happen. And he says, I see you've got a lot of time on your hands, and then makes the $D face in real life as he dances his way back to his wife, who starts walking faster like she's hoping no one will think they know each other. I love you is nice. Why the frig do I even love you is the best. I want to be that couple. The best way I can think to describe the experience of reading Moby Richard is you're in line at the DMV, and this guy behind you very loudly says, well, who hasn't had a gay experience? And then proceeds to tell you every detail about his life, in between anecdotes about how great baby batter is, and how ropes work. And sometimes he'll say the most poetic crap you've ever heard in your life, and then jump right back into explaining how a whale is a fish because 1, it swims in water, and you're still only like halfway through the DMV line. I love Ishmael Merman Hellville fake name. Love a narrator who opens his book like, hi, I hate working. Do you ever get depressed? I'm in a great mood right now, and it is not a manic state. Anyway, I've Googled 10,000 whale facts. Fact 1, the whale is a horse, and he loves me. Maddie being introduced as this literal ray of sunshine, and then being the first to beat along to Piltover's turn to martial law. Her interactions with Vi, mystifying her as one of the good ones, one of the good Zonites. She was always discriminatory towards Zonites. They just didn't make it overt at her introduction. The turn to fascism and discrimination can start with anyone, including a literal ray of sunshine. There's a saying, the nicest cop you know would still sweep a homeless encampment, and the nicest enforcer you know would still gas you with the gray and cheer on martial law. My mythology pet peeve is when someone describes a scenario in which they keep nearly getting something and then having it snatched away, and everyone's like, one must imagine Sisyphus. No! One must imagine Tantalus! Sisyphus equals being made to perform a pointless, aggravating task over and over without ever making any progress. Tantalus equals being offered a glorious reward only for it to vanish as soon as you reach for it. They are not the same. Man, explaining this over and over must really make you feel like syphilis. There's lots of problems with USA public education, but also a lot of you were just drawing Naruto characters kissing while your history teacher tried to tell you about the scramble for Africa. They should make an anime about major history events, actually. That way, people could still ship the characters and be forced into accidentally learning things. Maybe the characters could be just different countries interacting even.
Shut up, 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 shut up!
Be me, playing Vidya on a Sunday night. Phone rings, it's Mom. Anon, do you know what powered the initial versions of the F-104 Starfighter? Huh? .jpeg? The General Electric J79 fed by 2 radially mounted half-shock cone intakes? Why are you asking? Hear a muffled cheer in the background. Turns out my parents were playing a trivia night and used me as their lifeline. My face when being an aviation nerd won my parents 10 grand. Plane frigger, good ending. Implying frigging planes isn't a good ending. When you join the Air Force, it isn't. Good point. Eventually, you realize you don't want to die. You just don't want to live the life you're living. And slowly, you try to create a life you want to live. Just gotta start there. No one needs to add, sounds fake, but okay. No, well, not me, impossible, etc. to this post, and I'd rather you not. One day you think, I want to die. And then you think, very quietly, actually, I think I want a coffee, a nap, a sandwich, a book. And I want to die turns day by day into I want to go home. I want to walk in the woods. I want to see my friend. I want to sit in the sun. I want a cleaner kitchen. I want a better job. I want to live somewhere else. I want to live. Rook looked to him. You've made all this talk about Lucanus being kept hidden from you, and you're not coming with us to get him. Ilario's eyes widened for a fraction of a second before he answered. there's a chance we've been followed. If we all disappear from the dock, you get to play the alluring hero. Why, hello, what's this? What's up? Did you come in here just to eat plastic? Well, you can't do that. It hurts my feelings. Oh, big girl, you're coming here just to eat plastic. I'm gonna, eat my plastic. Oh, you're fine. Oh, I know I took you away from the plastic. All right, you talk a lot. You know that you talk a lot for a chicken wing. Oh, for a chicken wing of your density. You really do talk a lot. Talking chicken wing, I love you. Why are you so small? Why are you built like that? Oh, don't bite me like that, chicken wing. A whole chicken wing biting me like you, beautiful chicken wing. Okay, bye. Thank you for visiting, chicken baby. My housemate's cat came into my room while my dictation was on. Thinking about how when you experience a lot of shame in your formative years, indirectly, directly, as abuse, or just as an extant part of your environment, becomes really difficult to be perceived by other people in general. The mere concept of someone watching me do anything, whether it's a totally normal activity or something unfamiliar or embarrassing, whether I'm working in an Excel spreadsheet or being freaky on Maine, it just makes my skin crawl, my brain turn to static because I cannot convince myself that it's okay to be seen and experienced, because to exist is to be ashamed and embarrassed of myself, whether I'm failing at something or not. Because my instinctive reaction to anyone commenting on anything I'm doing is to crawl into a hole and die. It's such a bizarre and dehumanizing feeling to just not be able to exist without constantly thinking about how you are being perceived. Ceaseless watcher, give me a goddamn break. Kind of a Reddit am I the butthead post, but sometimes it is a little funny to frig with people in ways that deliberately conform to a stereotype of what they must think of you. The other day, I was talking to my friend, and I randomly said that I wanted a pet chimpanzee. I dress it in person clothes, dungarees and hats, and I teach it to love science fiction. And this girl nearby was like, "You know how dangerous those things are, right? Also, how unethical it is to keep an ape as your pet for your own amusement?" And I was already seeing where the conversation was going, so I was pretending ignorance, like, yeah, but it wouldn't just be for my amusement, it would have practical points too. And she ignored that statement entirely to say, "Well, chimpanzees can rip faces off." And I was like, what's the most frustrating thing I can say now? Finally settled on, mine wouldn't do that though, and you could tell she wanted to hurt me very, very badly, like a chimpanzee would if I had one as a pet. When it's really bad again, and it's still way better than it used to be, but it's still really bad, and you do all the right stuff, and you try, and it still really hurts, but it's working, but it still hurts. And you go see the beautiful majesty of nature, and your soul is so close to being at peace, but your mind is still in pain, and it's better, but it's still bad, and the sun is setting. The little girl I was looking after today was so effortlessly funny, and she didn't even know it. She wanted me to play Holidays with her, which I assumed was a game where you pretend to be going on holiday. And it technically was, except her version mostly consisted of role-playing being stuck in a traffic jam on the way to the airport. She kept giving me orders like, "Now you have to be the traffic warden, and you're telling me we can't go that way because the road is closed." Or, "Now you're the man at the car park telling us there aren't any spaces left." Or, my personal favorite, "Now you're my dad, and you're cross because we forgot the luggage." Girl was working through some issues, I see. The average Tumblr user will see this post. They will feel compelled to open up the comments. When they do this, they'll see that nearly every comment written is identical. They all say, "Man, I sure do love the hive mind," with that exact same punctuation and capitalization. Upon scrolling further, they might find comments that do not say this. They will be compelled to reply to that comment with the word anomaly and nothing more.